She has many names. To some, she is Sakamata, the goddess of the sky. To others, she is the apex experience, awe-inspiring, unforgiving, the pinnacle of human achievement. We know her as Everest.
This is Sam from Gamereactor here, and we're live from Slush Play in Iceland. We're talking to the co-founder of Solfar Games, who are working on Everest VR. So Everest VR lets you explore Everest, but why Everest? What was the inspiration behind it?
Yeah, it's a good story behind it. When we founded Solfar here in Reykjavik, 18 months ago, we were kind of thinking around kind of our first projects, first ideas. We had a bunch of concepts for original VR games, but one of our buddies, Daði at RVX, the VFX studio here in Iceland, who had been working on the film Everest as VFX supervisor, showed us some work that they were doing using stereo photogrammetry techniques to create a photoreal shot of a synthetic Mount Everest. We saw the work in progress. We thought, hey, let's do a technical test in Unreal and see if we can actually bring this into VR and get it at 90 hertz, locked frame rate, near photorealistic visual quality. If we can do that, then maybe we can create a visceral, interactive experience of what it feels like to summit Everest in VR. So that was kind of the genesis. And we got together, came up with some concepts and kind of how we wanted it to progress. I mean, it's not a game. It's very much a experiential thing in VR, but obviously built in Unreal. So it was interesting to take our first project as game developers and create some sort of hybrid, which is not a conventional game, but something new.
And how has it been working with RVX? Because they're obviously very based in the special effects industry and film. How has it been working with them?
It's been beautiful. I mean, Daði and our team, we all worked together back in the 90s when we were doing our first attempt at virtual reality. So we were doing real-time, avatar-based, multi-user worlds. He was actually a young animator working on that team. So he started in real-time graphics. Then he started his journey into Hollywood, did that for 20 years at Framestore and The Mill and all that. And then we kind of came back. So it was all kind of poetic. We had done CCP in the meantime. My co-founders did EVE Online. I worked in mobile gaming, and then we kind of all came full circle back into this real-time, high-end kind of visual experience that we're doing in VR.
Can you run us through some of the activities you could do in the game? Because we played going across a ladder, which was obviously very, very scary, looking down into the crevasse below. What other things could you do in the game?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, basically at its core, Everest VR is a series of vignettes or sequences that show you kind of the key set pieces of what you would do if you were summiting Everest. So you start at base camp, where you basically make a donation to the mountain god at the puja ceremony, that the Sherpas do traditionally, make a food donation, and if the crow lands on the altar, then that's good luck for your journey. You equip your gear at base camp by putting it over your shoulder and basically getting your climbing axe and your backpack and so on. You go to Kumbo Icefall and make it across the crevice and climb the ladder like you did. Then you go to Camp 4, where you actually have to do an overnight, climb into a tent, and wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning, where you come out of the tent in VR. Now it's 4 in the morning, darkness, and you're about to start your hike on the final attempt to summit. From there we go to Hillary Step, which is an iconic single file ledge. As you come off the knife ridge, you come up the Hillary Step. This is where climbers have to actually wait for other people to go down or up. It's a pretty dangerous part of the mountain, and we have sort of a nice kind of rope attach moment where you attach your rope, walk along the ledge, and then climb up vertically again. And then finally at the summit, you basically get to the summit, plant your flag, and then kind of take in the view. So we try to get people to kind of slow down, just appreciate the vista, the scenery. And so we have a little moment at the end where you actually see a full day-night cycle in real time in 2 minutes. So you see the sun set and rise again. And then finally, what we're introducing here at the show, and we launched on Viveport actually today with HTC, is a new expansion to Everest, which we call Scalable God Mode. It's basically a diorama mode of the Himalayas, so you're towering over the Himalayas, but you can actually scale down using the Vive controller, so you can zoom in to like a 50 meter to 1 scale, and then you crouch down and you'll see little climbers, like little people, that you can actually watch and follow them. And if you stay there long enough, they'll make it all the way up the mountain. So we're, again, trying to kind of give a very different experience of that. It's very different from the first-person, more kind of game-like experience that we shipped with originally. And then the other thing in God Mode is we're showing some of the historic climbing routes. So the Hillary expedition from '53, the first Chinese expedition up the north face of Everest in 1960, and you can actually teleport along the climbing path and follow the exact viewpoints that those expeditions had of Everest.
Did it require a lot of research to recreate Everest in this way in VR?
It took some research. I mean, Dade from RVX, he was there on site doing image capture, a few years back. So he was the only guy on the production who'd actually been to Everest. The rest of us had to, do things like interview Dean Hall of DayZ fame, who's actually been on Everest. Dean was awesome. He was here at Slush last year, came to visit us when we were just starting our technical prototyping, and he said, guys, I just did this. And he's the only game designer I know who's been on Everest. So he gave us a bunch of great advice. Then we kind of reached out to a few other Everest climbers and got them to kind of look at work in progress, and then started showing it to people afterwards. And we're kind of thrilled that the verisimilitude and at least the visual sense of presence and immersion, even for people that have been on Everest, is working for them, which has been really gratifying point of feedback from people who have actually been there.
Do you think this is part of a emerging area of VR where you can recreate areas you might not get to see in real life, but through the medium of VR? Absolutely.
I mean, I think one of the first obvious concepts for VR is to transport you to impossible places. And that was kind of our tagline for Everest. Let's do something iconic, that 99.9% of humanity will never experience in the real world. VR is a perfect medium to give that sense, because when you feel true presence in VR, you feel as if you are in that place. And it's a magical experience. And so we thought, why not go to the top of the world, do the apex experience, and start with that. But I'm convinced that there are teams going around the world now capturing iconic places, the Great Wall of China, other locations like that, and start to kind of replicate them and allow people to experience and interact with those worlds in VR.
And what's next for Everest VR and Solfar?
So we're on a pretty cool update path for Everest throughout the fall and into early winter. We're going to be expanding God Mode even further, showing further climbing routes, kind of new ways of basically getting kind of that educational or almost like VR documentary style approach to it. But we're also hard at work on a new first-person sequence called Lhotse Face, which is one of the famous kind of very vertical climbs that you do from Camp 3 to 4. We're going to have whiteout conditions. It's going to be a little bit fraught, but it's a very cool update that we're doing for the Vive in the next few weeks. And then, of course, we're hard at work on the PlayStation VR version of Everest, as well as the Oculus Rift version. And those will both be shipping before the end of the year.
Cool. And are there any plans on being able to scale the mountain in real time like you were actually climbing the mountain?
Right. We get asked that a lot. So if you were actually ascending Everest in real time, you would start by going up and down the Khumbu icefalls between base camp and Camp 1 repeatedly to acclimatize yourself and get basically accustomed, getting your body ready for the final ascent. The whole journey, actually taking that into account, takes about 2 weeks. So that's fairly lengthy hardcore simulation if we did that. In the God Mode, you can actually teleport at the closest scale to the mountain. You can kind of take it slowly and at least follow the routes, see the vistas and so on. But we're not trying to create a hardcore climbing simulator. We're not going to get that close to the kind of real-time aspect of how that experience plays out.
So what platforms is Everest VR on now, and how can people access the game?
So we're on HTC Vive now. You can download it on Steam, or you can now go to viveport.com, which is HTC's app portal. That just launched today, and so we're one of the apps that you can pick up from the front page there. So it's a simple one-time download, and you're on your way to the summit.
And how much is it?
It's $20, so US $20. I don't remember the pound conversion rate, but $19.99.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.